Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. About 2 years ago, I made a video talking about how, how I would have made the Battleship movie. And within that movie, I leaned very much into how a typical game of Battleship is structured, and how I would want to duplicate that structure on a silver screen. And today, I thought I would go a little bit deeper into that and expose my interest in my overall interest in Battleship by talking about how I would configure an ultimate version of the Battleship game. By the way, this logo is from Logopedia, and as you can see, it actually has a register here. So I do not, I do not own any. I do not own this logo or this image. The same will be true for all of the images that you're about to see throughout this video, because surprise, surprise, there will be quite a few. Anyway, my history with Battleship, the game, actually started when I actually started almost 20 years ago, when I first started playing a game that was basically a collection of other board games. And while there was technically a campaign mode in the sense that you could set up a profile and play around and be able to unlock aesthetic rewards and stuff like that, there wasn't really a typical campaign. Anyway, one of the games that constituted that larger game was Battleship, and I'm not gonna say it's the one game within that collection that I most often came back to, but once I no longer played that game, I still searched for various iterations of Battleship, and I have played quite a few, from the very basic pen on paper game of Battleship, all the way to video games that were more like military simulations. With each ship having various abilities, with terrain to consider, etc., etc. And I thought that given that, I thought I would go. I thought I would, and now that I have all that experience with the base game, I thought I myself would go a little bit into the actual, into what I think makes this game interesting, and present what I would consider to be the ultimate iteration of Battleship. The aim of this video is my aims when it comes to creating the game is that it should be viable for online, over the board, as well as being played by pen and paper. And also, I want more emphasis to be placed on strategy than on guesswork or luck. Like, I really want victories to be merit based to some extent. And that unfortunately means that there can be that the game itself can't really have anything that any components that are in any way luck based or random or are based upon randomness. Or if there are, those should be minimized to the highest extent possible. That unfortunately means that certain tricks might not be used, or at least not in the base game that I would be developing. What do I mean by base game? Well, that's where the conditions come in, because I am setting myself a certain degree of limits to be limits that I want to think about when it comes to designing this game, and the things that I think would make it more noteworthy, more enticing, and that would fit my goals a little bit better. My conditions are that it would take place on a classic 10 by 10 board, with a grid. And however, I am willing to flexibilize that and allow the board itself to actually be somewhat, allow the game itself to be somewhat variant friendly. That means that even if you don't have that means that you can alter the board in various ways. Maybe make it bigger, maybe make it smaller, maybe cut pieces off of it so it has a specific shape, etc. Whatever I'm about to do shouldn't really get in the way of that. Another condition I want to introduce is that each ship has its own specific ability. However, only one, because as I said, there are Battleship games out there that are like, in many ways, full military simulators, which means that you have a lot of, which means that that each ship grants the player access to several abilities, and with these several abilities, the game itself can become very dynamic and very discordant in a way, very chaotic, somewhat harder to follow up on, or at least harder for human players. So I want to keep that level of what fighter pilots would call helmet fire a little bit under control, and only give one specific ability for for a ship, and that ability would have certain conditions regarding how it is used, and it would only apply and it would only apply as long as that ship itself is active. And this is where the part where I say where variant friendly is somewhat extended to include not just boards, not just modes of play, i.e. online, over the board, or pen and paper, but also when it comes to stuff like commander modes or special abilities, because I want the ship abilities to be employed either every other turn or as soon as enough energy points are available, depending on which is easier to implement within a specific format, or what would be more interesting to implement. Also, stuff like there are games that have something akin to a commander mode where the player actually takes on the role of a commander who has certain certain distinct abilities that allow the game to be flexibilized to a higher degree. I pretty much think that kind of thing should be possible, though I'm not trying to map that one out because it's a little bit too. Because I think it would make this video a little bit too complicated. Perhaps the biggest change I would implement is that instead of the typical 5 ships, I would want the base game to have 6. And also another facet about the ship, because there are various various iterations of the game where various ships kind of split off or have some kind of a lateral annex and are not just straight lines. And while I respect that, I do not wish to incorporate it within the base game. It could come up in some kind of variant, but for my base game, I want I want straight ships. Call me homophobic, but that's what I'm looking at. As for what and why would I want 6? Well, for the simple reason that they would have to occupy more space, therefore making it more likely for every single turn to actually, to also actually be a hit, and therefore there is a higher emphasis on strategy because the number of viable fleet formations changes. Viable fleet formations changes, and as such, players have a few more things that they have to that they have to consider. And they have to consider what those ships are and how big they are. I will reveal throughout the course of this video. And namely, I'm gonna do it right now by talking about the various ships, starting with the Minesweeper. By the way, all of these photos are from Wikipedia, and I assume they are licensed under Creative Commons. So, if you want to know where they're from, that's where I go. I simply typed in the name of the ship type, and then picked the first image available. And first one that I want to talk about is the Minesweeper, which is the smallest ship in play, with only 2 squares. It is very much the bane of all players' existences, because given it is so small, it is very hard to locate. And there are people who have won the game. I think I myself have been one of them, who have won the game, even though most of their ships were destroyed, and they were at a numerical disadvantage because of that, because they were able to find all of their opponent's ships before the opponent was able to find this very small ship. So it is somewhat overpowered to the point where perhaps giving it an additional ability is unnecessary. But give it an additional power I've done regardless, and that would be mine management. What do I mean by mine management? By that I mean that if this ship hasn't been sunk, then the player whose fleet it is a part of can either lay down the mine or investigate if a certain hit is a mine. There are other game variants where the mine itself being triggered causes various hits on the board of the player who hit it. However, the thing is those effects are typically random, and there is little way to really convince people that, oh, like totally randomly nothing happened. Admittedly, even within conventional play, it is somewhat likely that admittedly, even within conventional play, it is and there is still that layer of bluff where someone could have been hit, but someone could have been hit, but then say that they haven't been hit. But for my money, so while that risk already exists, I think keeping it low is better. So therefore, a mine being hit would just signal a hit. And I think you can imagine, and if you've played enough Battleship, you'll know that if you have one hit, then your aim is going to hit around that particular square to find out how the ship you're hitting is how the ship you've hit is orientated. And if you find nothing around it, well then you find that you've kind of wasted four shots, which is not pleasant, even if you have several shots per turn. So so for that reason, I think it is very important for a ship like this to not only be able to lay down a mine, but to also inspect if a hit is actually a mine. That arguably makes it overpowered within the context of the game, but I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think I think when you look at the abilities other ships have, this one being mostly either defensive or observational, is still works somewhat effectively. Next up, we've got the submarine. One of two 3 square ships that I actually have in mind to that are typically included in such a game, and uh, and for me the submarine special ability will be torpedo. So you select, which means that you as the player with a submarine, you can select either a row or a column, and then the torpedo of the submarine will go right through that row or column until it hits a ship. So yeah, it's a pretty effective way of going through a through a row of ships, and yeah, there's not much more I can there's not much more I can say about it. Next up, we've got the destroyer, and yeah, I know, fancy little. This is a fancy little image for a destroyer. But I understand this particular class of destroyer is is actually intended to be refitted as a different type of ship, but that's beside the scope of this video. Destroyers are typically smaller ships that are very much offensively oriented. Offensively oriented, or towards protecting larger ships within a convoy. I imagine them being, for example, escorts for merchant ships in war situations, which makes the ability I've assigned to it quite strange, quite humorous in this case, because humorously ironic, because I've assigned it radar, meaning that if you as the player have this ship in your still standing, or rather still not sunk, then you can select a 3x3 grid within the 3x3 grid within the opponent's play area, and have that grid be scanned for occupied squares around it. If you and I think you can imagine that could be quite effective in terms of figuring out what is there, in terms of allowing you to pick out where to place your next hits. So where to place your next hits. So yeah, that's the destroyer. Next up, we're moving on to the bigger ships, starting with the battleship. Yeah, I know. The classic, the one the game is named after, and it is and as you can see, in conventional warfare, it is also the most spectacular, or the most impactful. And as such, its special ability mirrors that, namely the ability battery. If you select a square, and then it will, if the player who has a battleship selects a square, selects a square with this ability, then this ability will fire at the 4 squares that are placed diagonally from that square that the player chooses. Again, it's another way of somewhat effectively and covering a relatively large segment of the section of the play area, allowing the readers to better scoop out or figure out where exactly opposing ships lie. Opposing ships lie, that kind of thing. So yeah, this will. I think this should make it a pretty strong addition to the game. Next up, we got the cruiser, the sixth ship I've mentioned at the beginning, because this one isn't in the typical in a typical game of Battleship. Rather, it's something That's the one I want to add. It would also be 4 squares, so about as big as this one. Oh, and by the way, I'm actually pretty sure that the ship in this photo is bigger than the ship in this photo, but because of the way it's been taken, they don't exactly look the same, because cruisers are actually pretty big ships within a within a modern fleet as well. So anyway, what would the cruiser do within this game aside from filling out space? Well, its special ability would be to move, which is very much a game-breaking ability within this game. And because of that, it arguably has the most conditions of of any condition. It can either move itself or another ship that hasn't been damaged. However, it can only move in a specific direction, i.e., lengthwise along the axis of the ship. So it can only go forward or backward. It cannot go sideways, and it cannot turn 90 degrees or anything like that. Also, the ship that is intended to move has to be undamaged, and if moving requires it to and it cannot move to a place that has to a position or to a square that has already been hit. So yeah, that sounds like a lot of conditions. I will admit that, but really, when it comes to how game breaking this ability otherwise could be, I really have to do my best to sort of keep it in line, keep it from being too too destructive. I might have accidentally made the cruiser the weakest ship in the fleet this way, but you know what? I'm sticking to it. And last but not least, we've got the aircraft carrier, the biggest ship in fleet. In a typical fleet, so big that most of the countries in the world, even those with fleets, do not have aircraft carriers. In fact, I think only a handful of two. In fact, I think only about a handful or two of ships worldwide are actually capable of maintaining a flotilla of aircraft carriers. And it is also the biggest ship in the battleship game at 5 squares. And its ability will be airstrike. So just like with the submarine, which would function the same way, which will function as follows. Just like with the submarine, if a player has their aircraft carrier still afloat, or still within combat, and then they can select a row or a column, and then every square within that row or column will be hit by an airstrike. So sorry about that. It's basically the same attack as the submarine, only it doesn't stop at the first hurdle. It goes all the way through. That sounds like it's overpowered, I will admit. But what you must consider is that the aircraft carrier, due to its size, is actually the most vulnerable ship in the fleet. I am pretty sure that 60% of the time it's the first ship to go down. And while it is not unheard of for the aircraft carrier to be the last ship standing at the end of a battleship game, it is maybe not extraordinarily unlikely, but still quite unlikely. So that in a sense pretty much assures a game balance within that from that point of view. As for every other ability, well, I can't really speak from a lot of experience, but I am pretty sure. But I am quietly confident this is these abilities are the ones that would make the most sense and wouldn't tear the game open too far. when it would come to variants like, I don't know, commander modes or different size boards that could different size or different shaped boards that could result in something else, but I can't really say that as of right now. Hasbro, if you wanna hook me up and work something out within that field, you know where to find me. Anyway, while I wait futilely for a for a major company to take notice of me, I would like to say thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed my presentation, well then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to my idea or to the way I've executed it, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I also have a main channel where I talk about book-related and literature topics, a link to which you can find in the description down below, right past my social media links, which I suggest you check out should you choose to. Additionally, you have the option of supporting me on Patreon, where depending on the level at which you pledge, you will receive various perks, the specifics of which I will allow you to discover for yourselves. And yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.